Hi, welcome or welcome back. I'm Eleanor. Today won't be a summary of what I've read in the last week, nor in the last month. Today I'd like to celebrate a book that I have just read, and I think it's really now my favorite book generally, not just of this year, but a new favorite that I've discovered. And I would like to introduce you or reintroduce you to LOTE. It came out a couple of years ago. I think there's another edition, as far as I can tell, that's coming out in a couple of months. I'm holding out for that. This is a library book. I'm holding out for that because it's got a mother of pearl cover instead of the lavender. What a beautiful cover too. I'd like to dedicate this video to two booktubers that steered me towards this book, a life-changing book. It really is. The first, I want to get the names right. The first is Fraser Simons from his recent, I think it's second most recent video now, or maybe third, in which he talks about listening to the audio of LOTE. This was so helpful to me. I'd never heard of the book before, but I've been having trouble with my eyesight. And my doctor, my ophthalmologist, has told me that I really should try to use audiobooks more to give my eyes a rest. And so I jumped on the opportunity. So thank you, Fraser. I'd also like to thank Dee from Heroine's Corner. I'm going to link to both of their episodes about LOTE. Dee's review of LOTE was exactly what I needed to spur me on in my reading. It's a decadent read. It's not a particularly an unusually long book, but it's decadent in its use of words and descriptions. It's a very rich book, and Dee mentioned that several times through her reading progress, she came to the conclusion that maybe she actually would DNF it. Like she would finish. She just didn't want to finish it and put it aside. But then the next day she'd pick it up again. And that's exactly what I found. And I think that was so helpful that she mentioned that she got over that. And I think it's analogous to having a very rich meal or a very rich dessert. You can have a small amount of it, and then you don't want to gorge on it. It's too much. It's too good. It's too rich. You leave it for the next day and then continue. So thank you to Fraser and Dee. Fraser, in particularly about the audio, I really do agree with you. It's an incredible audio production. I think that everybody, even if your eyes are fine, I highly recommend what Fraser said, which is go for the audio first. It's a production, the likes of which I've never come across before. There's 3 different actresses who read different parts of the novel. And that works perfectly with the way the novel is structured. And one of the actresses is actually they're all British, I believe. One is a Shakespearean actress. The other 2 are quite well known from TV, movies. It really does add so much to the reading experience. So I did go to the library and got this, but I'm really not allowed to. I'm kind of cheating, so don't tell my doctor that I'm reading the real book, because I just, I needed to see it physically. This is the story of a young Black British woman going at the moment by the name of Matilda, and we follow her adventures in the first person. Throughout the book, there are excerpts from a couple of textbooks or archival sources that Matilda herself is looking into. So we do jump in time from the present day with Matilda and her motley crew of friends and enemies, and with the 1920s era in London, where you have different artistic social circles. The one that's most prominent in Matilda's mind is the Bright Young Things, and she is attempting to discover and follow and almost reinvent a personality of the personality of a poet who may or may not have lived at that time, by the name of Hermia. Hermia was black, and trying to get into the acceptance into the social circle of the artists of the time, as well as to have her poetry book published. The book LOTE is much more than that, but that's the basic structure. It's a book about being a black queer artist in England in the past and in the present, and in another dimension as well. There's a supernatural. It's not a fantasy book by any means, but there's a supernatural element that's fascinating, and mostly the concentration is on a particular period of time in Matilda's life when she finds herself at an artist's residency, which allows her to have a room of her own. And you'll see that this theme of the artist, of the black queer artist trying to find themselves, their place in the world, their place in society at this specific time, England in Great Britain in particular. This is a thread that goes throughout the book. It is, as I said, it's a luxurious book. Matilda has a passion for the most beautiful, the most flavorsome, the most exciting, the most luxurious, lush, effervescent aspects of life, and she doesn't let anything stand in her way. And this is something that is portrayed by Shola von Reinhold, the author of the novel, through some absolutely spectacular writing. The entire book reads like a delectable cocktail of some sort, or dessert. And there are a lot of different cocktails in the book. I mean, this is a minor detail, but what a fun way to discover a world that really has erased black artists from existence for so long. And through Matilda and her friend Agnes and Erskine Lily and many other, I'm careful here, I don't want to spoil anything. This is even though it's a very rich read, it's actually a very easy read in many respects. I laughed out loud so many times. I gasped so many times at what happened in this novel, and it's got so much depth. So I know at the beginning I said, I'm not going to be talking about many books, just this one. And I think I really do think that there's something to be said for having a problem with your eyes so that you can't read very much, because when it slows you down, and you're forced to really ponder. I spent a lot of time listening to the book, but also pondering. I would close my eyes and just think about what exactly is going on here, and what are the levels and the many meanings, symbolic, metaphorical, of this book. And there are so many. I think I'm shocked that everyone isn't talking about this book. I looked, after I found the video by Fraser, that's when I found Dee, because I was searching for people who had read it. And I don't know if it's a problem with my Google search or whatever, but I couldn't find very much. I'm shocked that Shola von Reinhold isn't heralded as the next important author. I actually think that Shola they've single-handedly started a new art movement through this novel. I mean, and I say that categorically. This is a novel like no other, and it deals with history and racism and homophobia in such a way that is so it's so unusual and so powerful and so entertaining and gorgeous. It's just a gorgeous piece of art that can only happen when someone very special is writing a most unusual book. Don't bother Googling what LOTE is. Don't bother Googling things as you read. Everything gets explained as you read the book. Don't be put off by the idea that there are things that you don't know as far as facts and history. This book has in it a combination of factual history and fiction, and that's as it should be. It is it's a law unto itself. I think it's somewhat similar to this book by Benjamin Labatut. In one way, if you've ever read When We Cease to Understand the World, which I read last year, it's similar in the sense that space where you're wondering, is this really what happened? Did this person really exist or not? It's a very powerful hesitation that allows the reader to do a lot of work for themselves in their imagination. So I think the most important advice which I would give is that I don't think this is not an elitist book in any way. It's a celebration of the life of the artist, and it'll change the way you view history and art if you give it the time. And some books just need a lot of time, and it's just not enough to give it a couple of brief hours or brief sentences. You need to really look at it closer. Let me check my notes, because I don't want to overdo this as well. I wrote here to remind myself, it's a book of escapes and transitions, although I like to use the word that Matilda uses, which is transfictions. Because the novel is in the first person, and Matilda is such an interesting and glorious character who I just love. Matilda herself presents her life to us, the readers, and she does this in her own unusual ways. So if I were to summarize some of the aspects of her life, I wouldn't do justice to her, because she very much controls her own story. And it's through a very specific use of language and words and the way she reacts to images. And so it's through her what she herself calls them her escapes and her transfictions, that we learn more and more about her and about how she sees her life and how she controls aspects of her life as the artist that she is. It says that you could read this entire book as a queer book. I mean, it is a queer book that deals with transforming experiences. There's many different ways to read it. I encourage you to immerse yourself in the audio and see for yourself how you feel. Around the early 20th century, Virginia Woolf, I forget the exact date, but she wrote, A Room of One's Own. And I don't think she was thinking of a black queer woman having a room of her own. And it's something that I'll never think of the modernist movement and poets of that era, especially, in the same way. The erasure of the black poets of that time. I'm more familiar with the American poetic modernist movement. This is set in Britain, but nevertheless, the parallels are there. I'll never think about it in the same way again. I'm consistently shocked at my own ignorance sometimes. But that being said, LOTE is not at all a didactic novel. I think any reader who gives it time will feel that they are actually included in Matilda's motley crew. And it's got a great ending as well. And I mean, the cover itself, it's so superb. This is taken from an actual, it's from a miniature of an illuminated manuscript from the 16th century. And it says it represents the peacock stage of alchemy, when the oily black contents of the alembic flare iridescent. And the color, the sparkling, glittering, iridescent color that lights up this entire book is remarkable. And Shola von Reinhold, the author Shola von Reinhold is a writer to look out for. So I thank you very much for listening. I wish you good reading. It's a wonderful adventure to go on. And don't forget, the only real property is the property of the mind. I'll see you next time. Thank you.